The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. That'll all make sense later. The number is now 3, by the way. I have 3 days of class left in my college career. How sweet is that, right? You all have more than that, and I'm sorry for you. The interesting thing that I've realized, though, about senioritis is that it's not really about like how long you've been here. It's actually about how long you have left. Because I've only been here for 3.5 years, and I feel like I've been here for about 7, maybe. Because it just feels like forever. So even if I was here for like a year, like Aaron Schock, right? Yeah, Peoria people. That's how I nailed you. I snagged you, the Peoria crowd. So even if I was here for like 1 or 2 years, I'd probably still feel like it was 5, and I would just be dying to get to the end of these 3. So it's interesting, but that's kind of how it is. That's what you can expect. But that's kind of why I'm up here tonight, is because Micah asked me if I could share some things about my life, what I've experienced in college, kind of one thing that I would want to pass on to everybody that's still here. So that's what I'm going to do. But to kind of set the stage a little bit, it's going to sound like a story about me, but it's really a story about Jesus. That sounds really corny now that I say it out loud, but it's true. So it's not really about how far I've come over the course of these years, like how much I've developed and how awesome of this person I am. It's not about how far I've come, it's about how far I've been carried. So the fact is, and kind of where I'm going to get to by the end, is that Jesus never changes. He's the only sturdy foundation for our lives. And I think that this is actually a story about all of us. I think it's a story about what's happening in this little community of faith around Bradley's campus. And I think that my particular story is just one of the ways that it's worked out in my personal life. But I think it will relate across the board. So to take you back, I want to tell you about my high school experience near the end of it, because that's when college starts, right? You're looking for schools and doing all this crazy school searching. But also, a really important thing that happened at the end of my high school career, when I became a senior, I also became a Christian. A lot of people tell you about how they were, Christian their whole life, and they did all this, and then they kind of really figured it out, like in college or maybe in high school. I just wasn't one at all, and then kind of a day later, I was one. So it's kind of a unique story, and I want to tell you about it for a lot of reasons. So I'd lived a really selfish life up to that point. Maybe somebody can relate to that? No? Okay. So I lived a really selfish life. I got everything that I wanted, like ever. I got stuff that I needed or wanted. I got leads in musicals and roles on sports teams and the affection of girls and the jealousy of other guys, whatever it was. I got whatever I wanted. And probably the worst part about me, though, is that I seemed like this really nice guy. I seemed like this guy that was just confident and very sure of myself and all of these things. But really on the inside, I felt that I was absolutely head and shoulders above everyone else. And then right after that, as I was riding on top of the world, right after my junior year, the worst summer of my life happened. Kind of everything around me came crashing down. Some things that I had done got around to some people that I didn't want them to get around to, and everybody knew all these things, and they kind of got to see, and I got to see for the first time that I really wasn't such a great person. In fact, I was kind of a huge jerk, like a really, really big jerk, and I realized that for the first time. I thought that I was really nice, and I thought that I cared about other people. I really just cared about myself. I was living for myself completely. I couldn't change it. Kind of a month after this big realization that hit me, this one day, I remember exactly where I was when it all, my life got ruined and all this stuff. A month after that, after I tried really hard to be this great person, try and change my ways, this great comeback story, I got myself into the same position. I couldn't change at all, as hard as I tried. I felt a little bit, maybe some of you can relate to this, I felt a little bit like a dog with my tail between his legs. I have 2 dogs now, and I really, this makes a lot of sense to me. I felt like I had just pooped on the carpet because nobody let me out, and I couldn't help it. You just poop on the carpet because you're a dog and you don't really know what else to do. And then you're hiding in your cage with your tail between your legs, and you know that you're about to get in trouble because you know you messed up, but you just can't change it. You're like, oh, I couldn't help it. I had to poop on the carpet. I didn't poop on anyone's carpet. That's not why I was a jerk. So you can not worry about that. But fast-tracking through a couple of other things that happened, I tried to kind of lean on my family at that point. My family life then crumbled, kind of as soon as I needed them for the first time. Just like blew up also. So then I looked to the next obvious thing. I looked at this girl. She was also a senior in high school as I was about to be a senior, and I thought, she's got her stuff together. Maybe she can help me. Maybe she can change me. She was a pastor's daughter. She was, she'd like never said a bad word in her life. Like she was just over there. And so I thought maybe if I could just be around her, be with her, maybe that'll make everything better. Well, she said no. Just kind of flat out, just said no. And I was like, well, that's weird. That doesn't happen. So I tried again. I came back with this new set of reasons why she should date me, and she said no twice. Within the span of a week. It was a terrible week for me. But it was a really bad week. She told me very simply that we couldn't date because we were not in the same place in our walks with God. I remember that sentence so specifically. Because the way I responded was, so? Does that matter? Is that an important thing? I don't really understand where you're going with this. Like, it's not making sense to me. And I didn't know it was a problem, but it was interesting because at that point I kind of took inventory of my life and her life, and I looked at what was going on. So she was, what did I write down about her? She was confident, never arrogant though. She seemed really satisfied with her life. She was content. She had a lot of peace all the time, even when stuff was really hard in her life. And I didn't have any of that. And I thought, well, if the one main difference between us is that she has this, whatever this thing is, like a walk with God, and I don't, and her life is really good, and my life really sucks, this makes sense. This was her, right? I think so. I forgot which one was which. But I think that this makes sense, so I should figure that out. I should investigate that. So I did. I investigated. I asked some questions. And somebody told me, I didn't know it myself, but somebody told me that the God of the universe had come down as a man and was murdered on a tree for my sake, and I didn't have to pay this penalty for my selfishness and my rebellion and all my blatant rejection of God. He paid it for me, and somebody told me that God loved me so much that he wanted to forgive all of my sins. And so I became a Christian, because I was like, I don't really understand what all that means, but I think that it's a really good thing, and it soothed what was going on in my heart. It made it hurt less. And so I thought, that seems like the only thing that could possibly save me. That sounds really good, actually. So I became a Christian, too. And so now to move on to college, because we're all in college here, and that makes more sense. I think the one thing that defines college, in my eyes, is change. So scenery changes. You have to move away from home, at least most of us. We meet a lot of new people, so people change. Our friends change. The methods of learning change. School got a lot harder when you went to college, right? Well, it did. Habits change, seasons change, whatever. Everything changes. Most importantly, though, people change. So who's a freshman? Yeah. Wow. Okay. A lot of freshmen. So when you went home for Thanksgiving, you all probably went home for Thanksgiving. Did you get that like weird thing where you hung out with some Thanksgiving friends? Specifically Thanksgiving friends. You hung out with some high school friends, and you were like, wow, we don't have much in common. I think the main thing we had in common was like that we went to high school together. And I don't know if you experienced that, but you probably experienced that they changed a lot. They're very different already. And how long has it been? 3 months? Not very long. But you've changed. Some people probably said, oh, you're really different. You've really grown up a little bit. People look at me from high school and they say, whoa, you're really, really different. I don't understand that. You're really, really different, and you've changed a lot and all this. It just happens. People change over time, and especially in college. I think that it's like fast-tracked in college. Everybody changes more than usual in college. I don't know if you've experienced that. I did. We're talking about me, so that's what it is. But that's precisely the reason why one of the most important things that I've learned in my college career is that Jesus doesn't change. So, throughout this college experience, I've been several different types of Christian. I'll explain that. As I grew more and more in my faith, I kept realigning what was most important. I thought that I kept figuring it out. So for a while, I was a Christian causes Christian. Okay, Christian causes Christian. I was a secular friends-only Christian. I was a Christian friends-only Christian. I was a discipleship-minded Christian. I was a super evangelist Christian. I was kind of a hippie Christian for a while. I sat in my hammock every day and walked around barefoot. And I was this it's weird, right? Yeah, okay. Some people remember. I was a lot of different types of Christian. I was a lot of different types of person. My identity kept shifting. And I don't think that that's really a bad thing, and I want to explain that. So it's not a bad thing to change, because people change, we have to change, because when you're redeemed by Jesus, when you're brought into the family, it spawns being transformed. So once you're once you're redeemed, you have to be transformed then next. It's the next step in the process, and I think it's good. I think it's critical. I think that Jesus wants us to change and helps us change. I think it's crucial, because you can't become more like him until you become less like you. And so, change is good. But the way I changed was out of line. Over and over. It was always out of line. I was missing something. So, whenever I realign these priorities, I would say things like, this is it. I found the thing. I found out what being a Christian is all about. I figured it out. I'm so excited. I'm the right type of Christian now. I kept graduating from my old perspective, my old thought process, to this new level. I kept moving from my old Jesus to my new Jesus. And for some reason, my view of Jesus, and it was so tied up in what kind of Christian I was and what kind of person I was, that it wasn't about him, it was about me understanding him. And I graduated from this former lesser Christian to this more enlightened one over and over. But the interesting thing about that is that my newfound thing that I kept figuring out kept changing. There was a new one every 2 weeks, it seemed like. So if my newfound thing kept changing, and I thought I had found the thing every time, it doesn't seem like that's a really sustainable choice, is it? I kept becoming this new person over and over and over and thinking I figured it out. But if none of those have worked yet, none of those have been the actual thing, then I doubt my next one will be. And so I think that as a human being, I'm subject to change. And when I rest my hopes on something that is fleeting, like my version of what it is to be a Christian, something that will change, it leaves me hanging, something that I think of, it's not sustainable. And if you look back to the verse I read in the beginning, Jesus says, build your house on a rock. And I was building my life on shifting sands, because I was changing it all the time. And I think that's a really powerful image in this case, because whenever I put my hope in the type of Christian that I was, or I was putting my hope in me, essentially. And if I'm putting my hope in me, then I can't be putting my hope in him at the same time. And there's a big problem there. So I think you can guess where I'm going with all of this, because I said in the beginning too, now I realize that. But the whole idea here is that the rock is Jesus. Jesus doesn't change. He is stable. He's sturdy. He's solid. He is the thing. So it's not what type of Christian I am or the approach that I take. He's the thing. He's the most important thing. He's the core of the universe. Everything is about him. Everything is for him, through him. He's the thing that we're looking for. Just himself. But there's a really important question, and I think it's a really deep question that kind of lurks behind this really easy conclusion of, oh, well, yeah, Jesus is the rock. Okay. The question that hit me was then, what does that mean? How does that change my life? What do I do with that? How do I react to that? And for me, I just recently realized, I'm graduating in 3 days, and I just recently realized that for me that means stop graduating. I'm still graduating from Bradley, but stop graduating from my old version. Stop moving on. Stop trying to uncover these new truths about God, these new truths about my life and who I am, these new truths about the world. Jesus is the pinnacle of our understanding of God. So instead of trying to find the thing, or find out what it means to be a Christian, or find out this new truth that will put my life into perspective, I just have to realize that I've already found the thing. That I found it 4 years ago, because he found me 4 years ago. Jesus is not just this gateway into salvation. He's the entire pathway that leads us all the way to eternity, and then all the way through eternity. So instead of adding stuff to my life, I've realized that I just need to start subtracting everything that takes me away from this one thing, this central thing, and the thing is Jesus and my relationship with him. So I need to keep learning, keep developing, keep building, but only upon the foundation build my house on the foundation of Jesus. And everything starts coming into focus. Because when we build our house on a rock that doesn't change, it's not going to go anywhere. And our life stops crashing down. And Jesus is that rock because he said so. I spent the majority of my college career trying to register for Christianity 201 because I thought I was ready to move on. And then I finally realized that it was never being offered in the first place because it's not a class. It's not a thing. You can't graduate from Christianity 101 because there's just the one thing. Jesus has broken down every barrier that used to stand between him and us. Dying on the cross, loving us like he did, means that we now have access into this great love. And it hasn't changed because he hasn't changed. So all that we ever wanted, all that we ever needed, all that we want right now, and all that we long for, kind of in the deep down part of our souls, is right there for us. Because he's given himself up, or himself. And he's the thing we were looking for. So please, my advice to you is stop looking around. Save yourself from learning the things the hard way, like I have, and I'm sure you already have, because I have 3 days left, but some of you, all you freshmen that raise your hands, have 3 years left in this place, in this community even, with these people. And ask yourself very seriously, what do I really believe? What really is my foundation? What am I putting all of my hopes, all of my dreams, what am I hanging them on? What am I resting them on? What am I building my life on? Because I looked for a long time for more, but if the richness of Jesus is unsearchable, then why would I try and find it anywhere else? So stay there. You're not going to find your life anywhere else. I promise you that. Because Jesus never changes. And he's given us himself, and he is the only sturdy foundation for our lives. So I'm going to pray for us. Jesus, you have given us everything that we ever needed, everything that we ever wanted, and we will never thank you enough for that. Let us, as a community of people, let us learn about you more and more. Let us hang all of our hopes and our dreams on you. Let us trust in you, and let us not look anywhere else for our lives, because we know, because you have told us that we can't find it anywhere else, that our lives are hidden with you, and that you will guard them until we come home and live with you for eternity. So God, I pray that for these people. I pray that for my friends here, that they will stop searching, that they will rest in the peace of understanding that you are the thing that we've been looking for, and that you've done all the work for us, and that we need only be with you. And that's what we've been looking for. Jesus, we pray this in your name, a name that is powerful, a name that is sure and sturdy. Amen.